as the dollar goes down, weakens. The shekel has been strengthening, and that actually hurts some people here in Israel.
Exactly right, Kalev. The shekel has been ranked, just in November, it was ranked by Deutsche Bank as the second strongest currency out in the world at the moment. You can see at the start of this year, one US dollar was buying 3.86 shekels. Now we're down to just 3.47. This is a massive drop over the period of just 1 year, and the shekel continues to go from strength to strength. And while, as was mentioned earlier, this does help export markets, here in Israel, you're seeing some tightening around the belt.
Asher, some of the bigger picture that you've been bringing us this week is those incredible numbers in high tech, what some people say might be a bubble. What does a weak dollar and a strong local currency, a strong shekel, actually do to those crazy high-tech salaries?
Well, exactly right. The high-tech salaries here in Israel are sort of on a league of their own, separate from all other salaries, and are going from strength to strength. We see here, just in 2017, hardware engineers up 20%, software engineers also up 20%, and DevOps developers up 11%. These are entry-level salaries just skyrocketing. You can't sustain those sort of numbers year on year and expect that the jobs to stay in Israel. There's risk of these jobs being pushed overseas.
Adam, I want to go back to you because really it's the responsibility, as you mentioned, of central banks to deal with currency fluctuations. And we're going to see a changing of the guard this year at the Federal Reserve. What should the Fed be looking at now to try to deal with this situation and some of the contingencies that you discussed about the weaker dollar?
Well, I think most traders at this point, in fact, if you look at Fed Fund futures, which trade in Chicago here in the U.S., are predicting that we're going to see 3 25 basis point rate hikes over the course of the year. What I'm actually saying is you may see a fourth, and that would happen if you have this increase in inflation that is possible. That's exactly what Mr. Powell is going to need to caution against. On the one hand, he doesn't want to choke off the growth, but on the other, he can't let inflation get out of hand. So I'm certainly expecting 3 rate hikes, and again, we may see a fourth.
Adam, when we see, as Kalev pointed to earlier, the Trump administration taking a lot of credit for what has been a booming American economy, do you think that that is fair, or should we look further back in time to really get the full picture?
Yeah, you know, it's so typical. Politicians always want to take credit, especially presidents, you know, whether it was Clinton or Reagan or Bush or Obama. They all say the same thing. I created X million number of jobs. No one president creates jobs. American businesses create jobs. Now, I will say that the policies that the Trump administration has been pursuing are certainly business friendly, but ultimately job creation happens especially in small businesses. You know, I don't know if you realize, but 3/4 of the jobs created here in the United States occur at the small business level. That's 50 or fewer employees. There's a great story happening here in this country. It's a very broad growth trend. You know, I think we're going to see 4% GDP, up from about 3.2 this year, and that makes me very excited. I'm very bullish. I'm a stock picker, so maybe I'm just talking my own book. But I think if you run the numbers, you're going to have to agree.
Asher, that strong shekel can impact on, of course, Israeli businesses. And a lot of the exporters here have been complaining to the Bank of Israel that Israel has to take some stronger steps in order to rein in that shekel. Is that something we're likely to see in the coming year?
Look, it seems hard to convert these trends, Kalev. I mean, the market is fundamentally shifting here in Israel. We're seeing, you know, the overarching increase in high-tech, this natural gas that's been discovered off the northern coast of Israel. And that's a massive factor. And you're seeing rises in currency strengths for commodity exporting countries across the world right now. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa, all these countries with big commodities to export are seeing increases in their currency, and those shifts are unlikely to change.